My name's McCall Jones. I am the owner, founder of Charisma Hacking. We solve two problems for coaches. First one is people don't watch my videos, and the second one is people watch my videos, but they don't buy. So I'm really excited for today's presentation and Q&A, where you're going to talk all about how to make people watch and trust and buy from you using this framework I'm going to teach you with your videos online. So it's going to be great. I'm so excited. Thanks for having me.
How can we bid that energy? How can we bid that energy? See, I need to mute and unmute. So go ahead, McCall. It's yours.
Perfect. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to start with you guys is kind of how Charisma Hacking started. The reason why I want to start here is because Charisma Hacking has really been a couple decades in the making. I promise you, I'm going to go through this story really fast, but it stemmed from me asking one question when I was a very little girl, when I was 8 years old. And that question was, do we have the power to control an audience? Now, I started my professional singing career at 8. This is the reason why I was asking such weird questions when I was a little girl. But I started asking this question because I was the go-to singer on the motivational speaking circuit, starting at 8 for, several years. And when I would perform perfectly, everything went really well. But when I would mess up even a little bit, if I, forgot a word on stage or wouldn't move in the way that I had practiced, or if I cracked on a high note or something, really bad things would happen. And some of these bad things, I was a professional. They were paying me a lot of money. So the event planners that hired me could be fired. My parents wouldn't get paid for the actual gig that I did. Or, if I would mess up, my dad at home would ignore me for days at a time, and he wouldn't speak to me because I embarrassed him in front of his friends. So all of this led to me having really high anxiety, and this anxiety led me to starting to black out on stage. I would basically not be able to remember anything about my performance until people started clapping, and then I would panic because I didn't really know what was coming. I didn't know the consequences that were going to follow, and I needed a way to be able to, control this audience's responses and to really know what was happening. All of this changed one day when I was 9 years old. I was on the program with this performer who was a former teen heartthrob named Donny Osmond. And what happened was Donny Osmond and I were both singing on the program of the Steve Young Retirement Benefit Cruise. And I was backstage, kind of having this panic attack. And he was on stage and I heard him singing, which didn't really do anything. And then I heard the audience reacting to him. And the way that the audience was reacting to him was something that I had never really heard before. They were speaking back to him. They were obsessed with him. They were oohing and ahhing and cheering, and they were doing this in such a manner that it made me really curious. And I realized immediately that if I could also get that reaction from people, that basically all of my negative consequences would go away. So I snuck around this backstage area and I started watching Donny Osmond perform. And very quickly, I started to catalog or create a checklist of the things that he was doing in order to control this audience. He was in control in a way that I'd never seen before. And I started to, in my brain, think, okay, what is he doing with his hands? What is he doing with his face? What is he doing with his body? How is he holding his microphone? And as I cataloged all these things, I then, only had to focus on the very small things. When I went on stage, it went really well. And then when I got off stage, I had this checklist of things that basically gave me control over this audience that I didn't have to question, because I knew what Donny did and I knew how they responded to him. And therefore I knew they would respond to me in the same way. So this checklist system became a way of life for me. I started to create this checklist for every speaker, comedian, singer, actor, actress, anybody that I would see who was basically getting what they wanted or was in control of an audience. I would then create checklists of why and how they were doing that, and then take the things that I felt were the best on these checklists and apply them to my own life. And this happened for a really long time. This was, a process that I got very, very good at. By the time I was about 20 years old, I could read any person who came up to me. I was getting very good at seeing if they were full of crap, because as many checklists as I had for what to do, I had just as many for what not to do, and what made people, create negative reactions or responses in people. People who were slimy or cringy or embarrassing or, any of these things on stage, I had just as many for both of them. there are two other things that really led to charisma hacking. The next one was I was handpicked at 21 to audition for this reality show. And, basically they told me I had the role because they liked my music, but I needed to come in for a formality for an interview. And when I went into this interview, they hated everything about me. they just did not like me at all. And I threw really every checklist that I had at them, for different performance techniques as I was answering these questions. And this director just sat there with like this stank face and just glared at me the whole time. And I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong until the end of the interview. He told me that, this, he pointed to all of me, wasn't going to sell. This wasn't the role that they needed me to fill, that I was too bubbly, too silly, too nice, too friendly, that I needed to be sexy and edgy and polarizing because that's what was going to sell. And I needed to lose 40 pounds, but they really liked my music. So if I could do those things in the next couple of weeks, that they would give me the role. And, this was a reality show on a network television station, and I just had this huge opportunity. I really needed to make it work. I had a coach who had put me up for the role, who had really vouched for me. My parents were pumped about it. I was pumped about it. And I decided that this was, really what I needed to do to not let everybody in my life down. So I went home and I did all these things. I became a new person. I got a new wardrobe. I lost 40 pounds. And then I went to the opening of filming. And a couple things happened. The first one was because I was put on diet pills to lose weight, my liver and kidneys started failing. My thyroid got messed up. I became, I had terrible insomnia, which was awful. My body literally started breaking down. But the thing that started breaking down even more was my soul. And I know that sounds weird, but this new person that I had become was attracting people that never were attracted to me before. Friends, boyfriends, producers, coaches, an audience. The crowd that I was building, the audience that I was building was attracted to a completely different person. And therefore, they really weren't the people that I wanted to be around. So I would go home and I would cry myself to sleep. And, the day that my body really was breaking down the very most, I just decided that I was going to be myself. We were about 4.5 months into filming at this point. And in my brain, I literally thought, what are they going to do? Fire me? Like, I'm going to go in my own clothes. I'm going to eat food and I'm going to be myself. And they did. They fired me. And I was on a plane home, and every single friend, boyfriend, audience member, anything I had built with this character that I had created for them left with them. I was devastated and I was a disappointment to everybody in my life. And from that point forward, I made a promise to myself to never get on camera or stage again until last January. I went to this internet marketing convention called Funnel Hacking Live. And as I sat there, Russell Brunson, the founder of ClickFunnels and the leader of this big internet marketing convention, said a couple things that snapped me out of it. The first thing he said was, if you have something that helps people, you have a responsibility to give it to them. And then the second thing he followed up with was to this room of 5,000 entrepreneurs, he told them, in order to share what you have that will change people's lives, you need to publish. And he started naming all these things I was really familiar with. He said, you got to get on video. He said, you got to get on podcasts. He said, you need to get on stages and you got to share your message. And I looked around and suddenly I was surrounded by 5,000 people who I knew needed what I had. And I saw that I was no longer dealing with the currency of fame, but I was dealing with the currency of impact and helping people. And I knew in that moment that whatever I thought of myself, all of the insecurities that I had of being seen and all this stuff wouldn't compare to the impact that I could help other people have if I could make people listen to them, basically. So I dove in, and the thing that I created that is a proven system that took all of the checklists of my past, of the very best performers, comedians, speakers, salesmen in the world. The thing that I created for entrepreneurs is this thing called the FACE framework. And what this does is it does three things. The first thing is it gets people to watch you. We have an entertaining checklist, and I'll frame it out with FACE too. The second thing is it gets people to trust you. It shows true compassion, which is different than vulnerability, and we'll talk about that too. The third thing is it gets people to buy from you. So with this FACE framework, the F in FACE is the level that we basically gauge your competency level with. We call it the floor. The A is authority. This is what makes people act or buy. The C is compassion. This is what makes people trust you. It's also what makes people confess their pain points. And then E is entertainment. And this is what gets people to actually watch you. So with these checklists, what we were able to do is within 2 weeks of creating Charisma Hacking, we had 72 people use the checklist to create their very first videos online who were terrified to be on video before. With watch time, we've increased watch time for some of our clients up to 242%. And we've increased their click-through rates 20 times using these entertaining checklists. For our authority checklist, we've used these authority checklists to triple some of our clients' revenue, which has been totally game-changing for them. All of these frameworks are broken into very specific checklists that focus on specific people's personality, because the last thing that I had to bring into it was all of the mistakes that I learned in Texas. The whole concept of you are building an audience that's attracted to one thing, right? That's what I did in Texas. And as soon as that one thing was gone, because it wasn't me, that audience left. Any money that somebody spends on traffic, any, effort that you spend building an audience, if you build it for a character or somebody who's not actually you, anytime you actually become you on camera or become you to your audiences, that audience leaves. So we make sure that we start in a place that really amplifies every entrepreneur's personality in very specific ways. So I know, long-winded lady, that's the story so far, but I want to give you guys a couple cool tricks, and we're going to go through this FACE framework, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So I know I went through FACE and what it stands for. I'm going to go through that one more time. Can I share my screen for your people on video? Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so share screen. Maybe. This one. Is it working? Yes. Okay, cool. So can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Amazing. Okay, so the first thing that we're going over, if you guys can't see this on video, no worries. I'm going to go through all the slides with you too. So we go FACE. So this is the proven framework. These are all of the things that we need in order to fully connect with a person on video. So the floor, the reason why this is important is because we are going to separate our charisma into two different things. And one of them is the level. The other one is the style, which is where we talk about authority, compassion, and entertainment. So FACE. So we separate this into two different things. So we're going to talk first about your charisma style, which is basically your personality type and the thing that people will be attracted to that will never change. And then the second thing we talk about is the floor or level. So one of the things that's really important about this to know is with your charisma style, like I said, this never changes. Every single type of personality or every single type of style of charisma is important, it works, and it can draw an audience. The thing that we're then going to measure of how well it makes people watch, engage, buy, trust you, is the level in which you are showing that charisma and how it resonates with an audience. So we go through the style type and we go through the level. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the two different problems that charisma hacking solves. So the first one is people don't watch my videos, and the second one is people watch my videos, but they don't buy. So anytime people are afraid to get on video, right, or they aren't creating content, if that's any of you, you fall into the category of people don't watch my videos, right? Because the first thing we have to do is we have to make videos. The second thing is a lot of times when people are first starting out, they can't get people to watch their videos. Sometimes it's a distribution issue. I don't know why I pronounce it that way. Sometimes it's a distribution issue, and we can talk about that. But a lot of times what happens is when somebody comes, the first thing that we look at is that drop-off rate, right? They'll come, they'll start watching the video, and then they'll leave, right? So that every single organic effort that we have of getting people to actually come and watch our videos is wasted because once they come, they don't stay, right? So we talk about both of those things with people don't watch my videos. The second thing that happens is people watch, but they don't buy. So the first thing that we kind of go through is the different levels of authority. So the different levels of authority, the bottom two don't make you any money, and the top three do. going through the bottom to the very bottom level of authority is just the one where, I don't know if you guys have ever faced this, but if you watch somebody and you want nothing to do with them because you are very aware that they have no idea what they're talking about, and the first thing you think is, if my business is associated with this person, it will hurt my business. So they have no authority, right? That's the very bottom level. The next level up is the most interesting one, because this is what I call low A, high E. People who have this level of authority do get people to watch them. They're very entertaining, which is why I say high E, but they don't have authority. These are the people who, when you watch them on video, you're like, oh my gosh, they're so funny. You're like, oh, they're so entertaining, but you would never take their advice and you never end up buying from them. A lot of the clients that come to me are in this place. They're like, you know what? I think I'm being myself on video. I think that I can control an audience. I think that I'm pretty good. And then I ask them the follow-up question. Okay, well, it sounds like you fixed this first problem of people, are watching your videos, but do they buy, right? And all the time they follow up and they're like, well, no, but are they supposed to? What if I'm not selling anything? Which I follow up with, you should be, right? So we make sure that the people who do come, who are attracted to our content, who are attracted to all of our stuff, not only watch, but they stay and they buy. So if we go to the problem, people don't watch my videos, we have 3 things that we can really talk about today. I'm going to go through these very quickly because I want to make sure that we get to the Q&A. The first one is emotional accuracy. With the fact that people don't watch your videos, a lot of times, a lot of people say that you need authenticity. It's not necessarily that I disagree with that, but authenticity is a word that I don't really like to use because, as you can tell from my very long origin story, I'm a lady of systems. And if it can't be measured and it can't be repeated, I think it has no place in the world and in the universe, let alone in business, right? With authenticity, you really can't measure that, right? People will be like, are you being authentic? Just make sure you're being authentic. Once again, nobody knows what the heck that means. Everybody has a different definition of it. But with emotional accuracy, you can measure it. It's either accurate or it's not, right? If you get on video and you're like, I am so excited to be here. And it's like, okay, well, you don't sound excited to be here. Is that how you sound when you're excited? There's a disconnect, right? It creates distrust with your audience because it's as if you were saying, and today my dog died and I was really sad. And they're like, wait a minute, you sound creepy. You sound super off because that's not how you sound. You don't sound sad, right? So we go over this emotional accuracy piece to make sure that what you're saying and the way you're saying it really match. A couple other just quick tips, and then we really can get into the questions and answers. The next thing is important versus relevant details. So a lot of times what happens is when people start creating content, they create it with the assumption that people are going to come and invest in them, the creator, right? They're like, as I build influence, I'm going to be an influencer and people are going to come to invest in me. That's the biggest mistake that they make, because if you're not creating content with the assumption that people are going to come and first invest in themselves, you're going to have a really hard time with people watching your videos and then following through and buying. The important versus relevant details, we do this with stories and we do this with content. Even though there are a lot of things happening in your life that may be important, if they're not relevant to the pain points of your people, you shouldn't be speaking about them. They have no place in your business until you've already built that rapport with people. And even then, you want to make sure that it's them focused. You want to make sure that when people come, you think if they left this training, with less than they came with because you just took up all their time and they didn't learn anything, then you have failed them. But if they come to this training and they can feel like they're leaving the training with more than they started with, then they will most likely come back, right? They will come back to invest in you even more. The last thing is what I call the anti-Kardashian tip. This is the exact same principle as important versus relevant details, but this has to do with stories. A lot of times, I'm doing this origin story workshop tomorrow, and this is one of the main things that we're talking about. This anti-Kardashian movement is just reminding ourselves that we are not a Kardashian, and nobody that is going to invest in your business really cares what your dog did that was funny today, unless it directly relates to the solution that you're giving them, unless it directly relates to the problem that you're solving for them, right? When you go on a Facebook Live and talk for 20 minutes about the funny thing that your kid said, you may have friends or aunts or uncles stay and watch, but nobody who wants to take their business seriously is going to sit there and be like, you know what I really want to do, instead of watching Netflix or instead of watching YouTube makeup tutorials, which are giving them solutions, by the way, I'm going to watch this random person who I have no relationship with talk about their kid for 20 minutes. That's just not going to happen. We are not Kardashians. We are not at the level in which we should expect people to invest in our own lives before they invest in their own. Right? So the last thing that we're going to talk about is just the people watch but don't buy. The only thing I'm going to say here is that this is not a likability issue. When you are likable, that only speaks to your entertainment. When you are trying to get people to buy, it's a completely different checklist. We're talking about authority. So you can be very likable and have no authority. It's not a likability issue. The problem that a lot of people face is they feel like the end all be all of, quote unquote, good video is if it's entertaining or not. And that's just not the case, right? Entertainment is only one of our 3 things that we're measuring with that floor, right? Entertainment, compassion, and authority. So if you are likable on video, it doesn't mean you have control over your audience. It just means that, you are likable, which is fantastic. You have a leg up on a lot of people, but they still aren't going to buy anything from you unless you have authority. So that is what I am going to say for right now, because I want to make sure that we have enough time for Q&A. This is, like I said, guys, this is a proven system. I use it with all of my clients. We make sure that we break everything down to their specific charisma style, and then we work on our trainings moving up the levels. So we say, okay, what is your specific authority style? What's your specific compassion style? What's your specific entertainment style? And how can we increase the level so that your watch times go up, so that people confess and trust you more, and that people buy from you more? So that is what I have. Welcome to Charisma Hacking. Okay, let's do some questions.
Yes, Dan, I think we have to continue. I'm loving this video and on Clubhouse. It's so different.
It's incredible. And everything you're saying is just outstanding. So thank you, McCall. I know I've suffered from a lot of the things that you mentioned in the beginning. So I really appreciate you being here.
Dan, you did not unmute your phone. You're supposed to do in Clubhouse as well. So he's in trouble.
Yeah, you're supposed to unmute on Clubhouse as well, Daniel. He said he suffers from a lot of the things that we talked about.
I had an issue. It kicked me out, but I'm trying to get back in.
You're in here. You're in Clubhouse. Okay.
Well, shoot. Cool. Cool.
Let me take some questions. Anyone?
While you're getting...
All right. So go ahead. Anyone has a question, just state your name and we'll be happy to take care of you. Anyone? Are you guys in there? Is that my signal? Can you guys hear me? All right. So anyone has a question for McCall? Yes, go ahead.
Okay, amazing.
Do you want to end this broadcast?